There's so much we could go into in the book, but obviously that's something that you should savour and just read and read slowly. It's not one of those books that you can read it in one sitting. You probably could sit down and read it, there's no doubt about it, but I think to take it in and comprehend it and mull over it as well. I think there's a lot of depth to this book. We actually can read it a couple of times and sit back and have a conversation. And I think just as importantly, it's a book that you can hand to somebody who has no insight into Collingwood, wherever they may be. But to give to somebody who doesn't have a feeling for maybe what football's all about or what Nathan Buckley's all about, and to read this cold is something that I think is significant. I think that's why you might get some international sales once this gets up and about and people see what it's all about. And as I said, the intricacies of the personal relationships. Your wife, as a father now, as a gross young kid, as a kid going through school, the hardships of being at a boarding school at 11 different primary schools, all those things along the way, having your peers who you're trying to impress and motivate, take the mickey out of you, which is nothing worse in life than to feel that you haven't got the respect of your colleagues and your peers. But I think, if I could be so bold to say this, and again I'm giving up my stalking on Sunday, but I reckon you're as relaxed and as loved and respected and have the greatest period and the greatest point in your football and life this very day. The book's out. You don't have to prove you're a good footballer. You're a superstar, we know that. You're one of the greatest that we've ever. That's it, that's done. Premiership, well loved it. It happens, doesn't happen. As we just said before, it is more than a game. And I think with your beautiful wife Tanya and Jet and Ace now, the relationship that you've had with your father, there's a starting point and an end point as far as your footy career, but now there's a life point that goes on. And to see how proud Ray was, and I must admit, after your last game, he looked at me and I looked at him and we just shrugged our shoulders, and it was as simple as that. We didn't have to say anything more. There we didn't win the flag. It didn't matter. And there was no person more proud of that than your father, and no one more prouder to have played a little bit of not a role, but to have just been involved in it than what I was, representing everybody at the College Football Club. So without banging on too much further, I think we might be able to hand it over now, Bucks, to say a few words. But unless you want to go into some, what's one I want to ask?
No, I just want to, before I get the chance, why don't you ask me, then I'll finish.
I'll ask you one. Probably wasn't that big a deal, was it?
It was to me. Now, there's a story in there about Eddie got Rob Lowe into the team circle for the team song. It was 2002, wasn't it? 2003.
Something like that.
And he's got a photo, and Eddie talks about in the book. He's one of his quotes. He's got his left arm around me, right up around Rob Lowe. And I'm looking like...
Could have been John Allen, you would have looked any worse.
Yeah.
Liquor's like Liquor's on the other side, he's fantastic. Liquor thought he might have been his partner in Dancing with the Stars.
I took exception to that because it had been something that the players had spoken about controlling the circle. So I suppose in some ways I was standing up for the rest of the group, but I suppose that focus had come a lot from me anyway. There's a lot of things that we sell as or that's available to everyone as a playing group, and there's very little that we own as players. There's not much inner sanctum anymore. So for me, nearly the most special part of the game, the fact that we didn't get a premiership. If I could have linked arms with the boys, 22 of us around the centre circle after a grand final and sung that song on our own, that would have been the most special moment to me in my footy career. So what I'm telling you is how special it is to be able to sing the song with those guys that have put their bodies on the line, put all the work in during the week to be able to do that. And that's getting a little bit dramatic about it, but that's what it is.
But it's not, because it's interesting, because the previous couple of weeks before I walked in and Billy the Goose was singing the song. And it hadn't been that part. And to be perfectly honest, I was rapt. I didn't go into it as much in the book, but I was rapt at the reaction, because when I came here, we used to give the Guernseys out in the back of the truck on Victoria Park and play a hit it and throw it to the property steward and walk off. We now have a Guernsey presentation. There's 1,200 people at the Crown, and we present also our Hall of Fame. And it's the biggest night as a Collingwood person you can be involved in. And while joked about that at the time because and it wasn't necessarily a joke because at the time we ended up getting $2 million worth of sponsorship because of the exposure, and there was a few intricate things happening behind the scenes that had to come together. But as a result of that, though, finally the players decided that they actually wanted to, do something that meant something. And singing the song in the Collingwood Guernsey, as far as I was concerned, was exactly what it needed to be. And as a result now, and Bucks will have a different perspective of this now that he becomes more of a media person, we don't let any of the cameramen in the middle. We don't have anybody in there.
Now every club's trying
and now they're all trying to do it. But that needed that point. And that had been something I've been working on from the day I became president. I've copped a lot of resistance along the way. I had people telling me that playing against Carlton was no different than playing against everybody else, and I was, it is. So I was trying to instill, if you like, there had been an isolation in the football club from the supporters, which was in a bid to become more professional. So it wasn't wrong, but it was maybe a bit misguided. But I think now, and that was one of the reasons and one of the parts that had to get this puzzle to fit together, where you get the players embracing the spirit of Collingwood and the spirit of Collingwood respecting the professionalism of the players, and along the way there's always a bit of friction. No one's right, no one's wrong. I could argue till I was blue in the face that I was right in what I did because the result was the right thing. Nathan could argue the exact same thing, and then I could change positions and argue Nathan's position exactly the same way, and I don't think he would argue mine. But the point being is that these things all happen, and I think that, again, that's why this is a good book, is that it's not somebody's opinion. You get a bit of a cross-reference on things. It's historically taken into account, so Ben, congratulations on that. It's not a beat-up, it's actually there, and it's a story that needed only to be told, but told in a way that made sense, and you've done that, and you've done a lot better than that. So Ben, first of all, we'll give him a round of applause. Recommend it, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's a very good book. As I said, there haven't been too many in football. Most of them are rubbish, and this one's a sensational one. The subject matter is pretty good to start with, and as I said, as much as they'll hate to do it, you'll see Carlton and Essendon supporters, probably with a brown paper bag over it, just reading it because they wouldn't dare wish that somebody might be from Collingwood or Nathan Buckley might be a good story. It's interesting now that he's not in a black and white jumper, that everybody who hears him on Channel 7 and on 3AW and reads him in The Age realises just how much a wonderful person he is and what a great depth of knowledge he has in football, but also more and more, and this is where I'm very proud, and I'm sure his parents are more than I am, but we're all proud to have seen the development of this scrawny little kid who had his heart broken at Salesian College with his knee hanging out from underneath him, where it looked like he was almost going to lose his leg at one stage, to seeing the man that he's become, and that makes us pretty proud. And as I said, I think there's still a few more volumes of Nathan Buckley, All I Can Be, because I reckon it should be All I Can Be in brackets to this stage in life.
Part one.
Part one. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Ben.